You know, at least Rubio spent a lot of time in the legislature and rose to become Speaker of the House in the state of Florida. That's better experience, I'll admit, than a little time in the Illinois Senate that Barack Obama could claim, and all that time as a community organizer. Gee, that's relevant stuff. All right. Jenna agrees with the Bud Man, but she's not in the voting here because I'm only taking callers here, and I'm taking them from both sides, looking for a little help against Rush. I'm down 3-0. Greg from Kissimmee, have I got it right, or does Rush have it right?
Well, Bud, I think you actually have it right this time.
Why?
Well, I just think that he's a little bit too inexperienced at this point. I agree with you. I think he needs a little bit more time under his belt. It seemed like we should learn from the Obama experience. That's
exactly where I am, Greg. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So there's no shutout, but the Bud Man is trailing Rush on Marco Rubio in 2012. Coming up, Dr. Ken Cronhouse with a special house call, and the issue will be radiation from the nuclear disaster in Japan. What do you need to know? How concerned do you need to be? Next on BHL after the news. Good morning at 7:59. The nuclear disaster continues to unfold in Japan. We're keeping you up to date during Bud Hettinger Live and our newscast with Michelle, top and bottom of the hour, and of course we will continue to do that. Right now I want to draw upon the expertise of my doctor, Ken Kronhaus from Lake Cardiology, who always brings us health and medical news, breaking health and medical news in our weekly house call. And I've asked Doc to focus heavily this morning on this issue of radiation escaping from those damaged plants in Japan, its impact there, its potential impact or lack thereof here, and what you need to know and not know about this, because there's all kinds of misinformation that's scaring a lot of people. Doc, welcome to Bud Hettinger Live this morning.
Hi, Bud, and if we could just talk even beyond the radiation, just all of the medical concerns that the Japanese have to deal with right now.
Absolutely. Start what you will, sir.
Well, initially, the concerns were the usual things that you see, cuts and broken bones, and also the water that came in. The important thing for everybody to realize here, it wasn't so much the crack, the quake that caused the problem. Most of the problems occurred from the water. And there was so much water coming in, people breathed it, actually got pneumonia in the lungs. So initially the concerns are the cuts, not to get infections, the broken bones from the earthquake, and then a lot of water initially coming in that would have caused lung infections. And also, right now, the concerns are making sure you get clean water to drink, clean food to eat, and enough electricity to keep some heat into the house.
Oh, yeah.
It's really cold in some of the areas of Japan. And
I've got to tell you, it's a nightmare even without throwing in the nuclear wild card, which we'll get to here. That tsunami on the heels of the 9.0 quake, the strongest ever reported there and one of the strongest ever known anywhere in the world. And now the infrastructure is so completely decimated, they can't get basic supplies to people. Medical, just water. Food. I mean, it's unbelievable, and it's in heavily populated areas, and you've got millions of people who are hanging by a thread right now in northern Japan.
Exactly, and I think for everybody to realize it, the biggest problem here was the water, not the crack.
Yep. I understand what you're saying. Now let's get to the nuclear situation. Radiation is escaping from those damaged plants. They're trying to deal with the situation to prevent full-blown core meltdowns at one or more of these reactors. The U.S. is saying for its citizens, stay 50 miles away. The Japanese are saying you're okay 20 miles away. Now we know the United Nations is reporting that a plume of radiation is up in the atmosphere and that it will be detectable in Southern California by tomorrow night. People are panicking. They're buying iodine capsules and all of this. Doc, what do we need to know? My understanding is nobody expects there to be a dangerous level of radiation here in this country from what's going on in Japan.
I would agree with that. You know, doctors like to use past history to determine what's going to happen. I think the best thing we can compare this to is Chernobyl. And a little bit about 3 Mile Island. The biggest problem in Chernobyl and 3 Mile Island is that we didn't have good information. And I think the same thing is here. The public just doesn't have adequate information. It seems like the American government doesn't have it either. And that's why there's so much confusion. If there's anything we learned from Chernobyl in terms of the long-term mental health of the citizens is getting good information would have been a lot more helpful. And I think that if we could get some information, this would calm a lot of fears. I heard the Surgeon General be hopefully misunderstood about American citizens taking potassium iodide. Let me reassure everybody, you should not do that. The likelihood of enough radiation from the worst possible case coming over to us is so minuscule. You'd get more radiation right now going up in an airplane and flying to Los Angeles.
Now, my understanding is if you take these to ward off thyroid cancer, because the thyroid is the most vulnerable organ when it comes to dealing with nuclear radiation, that there's actually a downside to just popping these pills, and you should not do it.
Well, these pills can cause a lot of nausea, vomiting. They can also cause allergies, the potassium iodide. The key about the potassium iodide, the reason why it's recommended is from the fallout, the initial radioactive particle involves iodine, which gets accumulated in the thyroid, and it's the rapidly dividing cells in the body that are most sensitive to the radiation. And unfortunately, the potassium iodide is really most effective only in people under 40, especially the very young and pregnant women. And it's not going to help most adults over 40. And there is a downside, as you mentioned, and again, it's the nausea, the vomiting, the allergy. So I would strongly recommend that no one take it. We'll know if there's too much radiation coming over, and I strongly, strongly doubt. Let me reassure, the worst case scenario occurred in Chernobyl, and nobody was exposed in America to enough radiation to cause any issue, certainly a lot less than you would get if you flew in an airplane from Florida to Los Angeles. So this is not going to affect our radiation exposure. It's a horrible issue for the Japanese. The important thing in radiation is, in terms of your own effect on radiation, is how strong the radiation source is and how far away you are. So those who are less than 50 miles from this catastrophe are at risk, but those who are 5,000 or more miles away should only have their prayers in mind for those exposed, but not be concerned personally that they're at risk.
Or maybe make a donation to the Red Cross. But for goodness sakes, back off the panic button. Doc, thanks for the reassurance and the perspectives on that, and a special house call here this morning. I really appreciate you coming on and dealing with this for us.
The Surgeon General backed off her recommendation. She said she was misquoted. Do not worry. Don't take this potassium iodide. We'll know if there's an issue, and I don't think there will be for Americans.
Doc, thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it. Dr. Ken Kronhaus, catch him at Lake Cardiology. Ask him about the Bud Scan, heart scan technology that saved my life. 352-735-1400. Catch Doc Sunday afternoons at 2 on 540 WFLA. Incredible show, full 2 hours of Good Day Health with Dr. Ken. Now it's 8:12, real-time traffic and weather together on the 2s.